Hello, this is ISBM faculty leader Dr. Alpha Oliva with an ISBM quick facts overview on the language and elements of value, important core material that's at the very basic part of most all of our ISBM courses. So we start by considering the relationships between value, costs, and prices. And we've done this because of many of ISBM member firms have started with cost-based pricing, where basically they buy some materials, they work on developing a new offering for customers, they compute what they think of it's the total cost, tack on a margin, and come up with the price. And we don't advocate this for a variety of reasons, okay? One of the reasons, one of the problems with this, and there are several, is do you really know your costs, okay? And there are a lot of problems with cost-based pricing, but one of them is, do you know your costs? And this can be very complex, particularly in a large manufacturing firm, because you can get your handle on direct costs, but there are indirect cost allocations that be assigned. Activity-based costing can get better, but the fact is there are problems with this, one of which is, do you really know your costs? Do you really know them? But more importantly, much worse, you can be and usually are leaving money on the table when you use cost-based pricing. And we always ask the question, what is the real relationship between cost and price? This is important. As a business marketer, you should be able to emphatically answer, there is no relationship between cost and price from the customer's point of view. Customers are looking at the value of their offering. If they're discussing your costs, the chances are they're playing a price game with you. From the customer and market point of view, there's no relationship between cost and price. You should always be pricing based on the value that your offering is delivering to the customer. So that leaves us with the big question, what should the term customer value mean when applied to a product or service? So at our institute, we talk about customer value with these components. It's the functional, economic, emotional, and relational impact that your offering, a supplier's offering, has on a customer's life or their business, always compared to the next best alternative. Okay. We use the term offering to always go beyond product. This often might involve a tangible product like a chemical or a manufactured element, but it also includes everything that's wrapped around that. Okay. And all of these components, we insist, can be expressed if you work through the calculations and work with your customer in monetary terms. The functional, economic, emotional, and relational elements. Okay, so let's go through this in a little more depth. Functional value really focuses on what does this offering do for a customer that's better than what we're doing before, better than what we have before, always compared to the next best alternative. Economic value, in a simple way, does this offering enable me as a customer to enhance my revenue, my top line, or reduce my costs and improve my bottom line compared to the current alternatives I'm using? Emotional value, very important and often overlooked in B2B. How does this offering make me feel? Listen, often in business to business, decisions are made, you need to search your feelings on this, to avoid blame. Business to business buys can be very big and very scary. And how do I feel about this decision to buy this offering, about myself if I'm in the buying center? Finally, relational value. Is this offering coming from a brand I trust and know will stand behind me? Or is it coming from a brand I don't trust? So these components are important. We'll go through them again quickly. Are there unique, relevant, compelling functional points of difference in this offering that build value compared to the next best alternative? Is it really clear how this offering will enable me to enhance my revenue, margins, and cash flow? Does this offering overcome, and you've probably heard the term, if you haven't, FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt that sometimes wraps around a big business to business buy? Will it enable me to develop a champion inside the buying firm that's willing to help me sell this offering to the other people in the buying center? And as of the time of this particular Quickfacts value, there were 5 to 7 people involved in many B2B buys now. And then what about the relational value? Does the brand that's making part of this offering, is it endorsing the buy in an important way? And by the way, if the offering does what it says it's going to do, that will enhance the brand of the supplier for future offerings. Okay. And again, We always work to reduce all of these impacts to the economic impact for the buyer. So remember, an offering, there'll be perhaps a core product, perhaps in business to business, you're selling a chemical, a manufactured part, etc. What we call the naked solution. What are all of the competitors wrapping around the offering that essentially doesn't create difference? Then what are distinctive points of difference? And finally, what's the brand? That's what we're offering. And again, naked solution, what's the core product? Plus all the extras that all the competitors in the category offer. So there's non-differentiating. But what the customer cares about is the value they're taking from the offering. And it's important to differentiate and view these differences as a business-to-business buyer or salesperson. The buyer is buying what this really does for me. And often, sometimes we're so tied up in what we're offering that we haven't made the jump to the value, all of the elements of value the customer is taking from it. Now, we also take a moment here to define customer perceived value. This is the customer's current understanding of the total impact on their business. The perceived value might be less, could be more, but might be less than the true customer value because customers might not be aware of the total value delivery. Or they might, know what the value is, but they're deliberately playing it cagey and taking a lower value position for price negotiations. And this often happens. Okay. Now, here's a point. Sometimes, we say, well, value is whatever the customer says it is. That is not always true or often true. Customers may be taking a lower value position so that they can argue on price. The bigger problem is sometimes as suppliers, we don't even know the true value of our offerings to begin with. And by the way, that's not because we're sloppy. It's because it can be very tricky. Doing real customer value understanding research involves time, effort, and energy with the customer, and developing a relationship that will let your customer in to really, help you understand the value. So again, let's take a look at this. Again, from the supplier's point of view, we buy some stuff, we do some things to it that add to our cost, but we're looking to solve a customer's problem, create customer value better than what they have before. The customer's perceived value may have to put some real effort into moving the customer's perceived value up to the true customer value. And again, be careful about your total cost. In our experience, that can be a very muddy place to play and not on what you use to establish price. Now, when you're working with customers, there are these two wonderful games going on. And the first one is a positive sum game. If you're working deeply with your customer and the customer is letting you in, and you're working to create a better solution, something better as way of an offering for them, you're creating value. And if you're like me and you love business to business, this is where the fun is. Okay. And it's the essence of what grows the gross domestic product of most countries, the creation of new value. And again, this is a win-win game. More for you, more for me, more for the value chain that that you're passing value down to if you're a business to business firm. So here, now you've created new value, you've win-win kind of game, but then comes price. And price comes along and is the knife that distributes this value. Price is the knife that distributes value, a piece for your customer and a piece for us. Now, Dr. Irv Gross, one of the founding directors of ISBM, used the analogy that price is the knife that slices the value pie into two pieces, a piece for the customer up there at the top and a piece for us down at the bottom. And one of the people in the class he was working with said, well, that doesn't look like a pie, or it looks more like a salami. So Irv coined the term, and this term is stuck, that this is the value salami. Price is the knife that slices this salami into a piece for the customer, a piece for us. Okay. This is, we attribute this to Dr. Irv Gross, one of the founding directors of ISBM back in 1983. So this is a zero-sum game, pricing. Okay. The value created is cut by price into two pieces. This includes our cost, perhaps some margin as well, hopefully. And this is our economic driving force for doing business. And it also slices a piece for the customer. The value distributed, that's the customer's economic driving force to doing business with us. Okay. So how you slice, this is the pricing decision, is how you slice the value into pieces. Okay. And this is a zero-sum game, more for me, less than for you. And this becomes the argumentative point in pricing. So from the customer's point of view, let's draw another graph here. They typically always have a competitive price in mind, although you may be bringing them something totally new. So they're trying to figure out just, how big is the problem you're solving. But if they're using a competitive offering, which is always the case, there's the competitor's value. And hopefully you're building new, fresh value that gives them a better alternative functionally, economically, emotionally, and relationally than what came before. So you're giving them totally new customer value. Their perceived value may be less than that. And that can take value out of the equation when you discuss price. And it's important. That's an important role of salespeople and communications people to move the perceived value to the true customer value. The true customer value is not what the customer says it is often. Okay. On the other hand, what the customer says it is, if you can't convince them, you can't move their perceived value to the true value, that value can be lost in the pricing discussion that follows. Price comes along and now slices this salami into two pieces: our incentive to supply and the customer's incentive to buy. These are all measured in concrete economic terms, including the perceived value lost, which can give you some insight on how much to invest in market communications. So the top line is the functional, economic, emotional, and relational impact that your offering has on the customer's business compared to the next best alternative. And this is the true value delivered to the customer. And hopefully you've been able to price your offering so that you capture some margin. Okay. So this essential graphic creation, the value salami, has been at the core of the beginning of many ISBM courses that gives us a taxonomy, if you will, to explain the relationship between value, costs, and prices. Important that we stress demonstrate value, use this tool to explain and communicate customer value before the sale, but then after the sale, take the opportunity, an important opportunity, to document that the value was delivered. This is an important way to learn about the value and use of your offerings and build offerings of higher value. The other thing to keep in mind is that sometimes value in business to business is captured in little bursts. Okay, one-time infrequent events. Your customer was in trouble, and as a supplier, you jumped to their rescue. Document that. Their line went down. They had problems with supply. Some other problem sort of surfaced, and you jumped in and saved it. Those critical events are points of value that you should be gathering carefully, because these tend to help build the emotional and relational value. So again, you might want to write this down. Customer value is always customer or customer segment, a cluster of similar customers specific. It can always be measured in currency. It's always relative to the next best alternative. Okay. And remember, functional, economic, emotional, relational value. But customers and all of us tend to make rational excuses for the emotional decisions we make all the time. Decisions are driven from the emotional part of our brain. Also, benefits in business to business can be complex. There can be tangible economic benefits that are fairly easy to compute the value of, and you can talk superior price and performance. But then there are non-economic benefits, and these are the kinds of things that relate to the relationship you have, the value of your brand, the ways you jump in and help the customer. And economic intangible benefits deep in these relationships. When did you come to their rescue? Did you guarantee some things? Did you do things to offset risk? And then non-economic intangible benefits. This is where relationships that have developed over years can be very important in the total value equation. Now, in other ISBM courses, we go through the process of how you would compute the economic impact of all of these sorts of economic, non-economic, tangible, and intangible benefits. So we leave you with this construction, the ISBM value taxonomy, the value salami. This is a surprisingly simple, but a surprisingly powerful tool for discussing value, cost, and prices, whether it's internally to your team or with customers. This is ISBM Director Ralph Oliva, wishing you luck in using these tools.